And before you click away thinking, but my house is different, stay with me. Because buyers don't care what your home used to be worth. They don't care what your neighbor got in 2022. And they definitely don't care how much money you put into upgrades. They care about one thing, what makes sense right now. And right now in South Florida, the numbers have shifted. Interest rates are higher, insurance costs are higher, HOA fees are higher, property taxes are reassessed higher. Buyers are not just buying a house anymore, they're calculating total monthly survival costs. And when they run those numbers and your price doesn't line up with reality, they don't negotiate. They scroll. That's the brutal part. Today's buyer doesn't test with low offers like they used to. If they think you're overpriced by even 5 to 7%, they mentally eliminate your home and move on to the next listing. No drama, no feedback, just gone. And here's something even harder to hear. The longer your home sits on the market, the weaker your position becomes. Buyers track days on market. They see price reductions. They start asking, what's wrong with it? Even if nothing is wrong, perception becomes reality. And in this market, perception is everything. Now let's talk about your neighbor. Their house went pending because they didn't price based on hope. They priced based on strategy. There's a massive difference between pricing to leave room to negotiate and pricing to create competition. In this market, slightly underpricing strategically can spark urgency. It creates multiple showings in a short window. It makes buyers feel like they need to act. And when buyers feel urgency, offers come in stronger, not weaker. But when you price high to see what happens is nothing. Silence. Another hard truth. Buyers today are hyper-informed. They're studying comparable sales. They're looking at price per square foot. They're analyzing how long similar homes took to sell. They know when a property is priced emotionally instead of mathematically. And sellers, understandably, are pricing emotionally. You remember the bidding wars, you remember the headlines, you remember your Zestimate climbing every month. But that was a completely different market cycle. Today, buyers are negotiating repairs harder, they're asking for credits, they're backing out during inspection if numbers don't make sense. They are cautious because they have options again. And when buyers have options, the best priced home wins. Not the best decorated, not the one with the nicest story, the best priced. Now here's the good news. If your home hasn't sold yet, that doesn't mean it won't sell. It means the strategy needs to change. You have 3 levers in real estate: price, presentation, exposure. Most sellers focus on exposure. Sure, we need more marketing. But if the price is wrong, no amount of marketing will fix it. More views won't fix a pricing gap. Professional photos won't fix a pricing gap. Open houses won't fix a pricing gap. Price is the magnet. Everything else supports it. So if your home has been sitting 30, 60, 90 days, don't panic. But don't ignore the message either. The market is speaking. The silence is the feedback. The real question isn't, why isn't my house selling? The real question is, am I willing to adjust to the market we have, not the market we wish we still had? Because once you align with today's reality, things move fast. And here's the part that stings the most. Buyers are patient now. They are not operating from fear of missing out. They are operating from fear of overpaying. In 2022, the fear was, if I don't buy this house today, I'll never find another one. In 2026, the fear is, if I rush into this, I'll regret it for the next 30 years. That psychological shift changes everything. When inventory rises and homes sit longer, buyers feel empowered. They take their time, they compare. They wait for reductions. They circle back months later to see who blinks first. And in most cases, someone eventually does. If your home is sitting, what buyers are thinking isn't complicated. It's simple. If it hasn't sold yet, it's overpriced. If it's overpriced, the seller is unrealistic. If the seller is unrealistic, this will be a painful transaction. And nobody wants a painful transaction. You might be thinking, but I'm open to negotiating. The problem is that openness isn't visible. The only thing buyers see is the list price. That number is your first impression. And in today's algorithm-driven world, first impressions aren't emotional, they're mathematical. Your property doesn't just compete with homes in your neighborhood, it competes in a filtered search range. If a buyer's max budget is $650,000 and you list at $665,000 to leave room, you just excluded yourself from their search results entirely. You don't even exist to them. You're not being rejected. You're invisible. That's the brutal efficiency of today's digital marketplace. And let's talk about the danger of chasing the market down. Here's how it usually plays out. A seller lists high. Showings are slow. 30 days pass. Then comes a small price reduction. Just enough to feel proactive, but not enough to reposition the home. Another 30 days pass, another reduction. By the time the price finally aligns with reality, the listing is 90 or 120 days old. Now, even if it's priced correctly, it carries baggage. Buyers assume there must be something wrong. You end up selling for less than you would have if you had priced correctly from day one. The first 2 weeks on market are everything. That is your moment of maximum exposure. That is when the serious buyers, the ones who have been waiting for something like yours, REMAX, are watching. If you miss that window because you were testing, you don't get it back. And here's another hard truth most sellers ignore. You don't determine your home's value. The market does. It doesn't matter what you need to net. It doesn't matter what you owe. It doesn't matter what your next house costs. Those are personal financial realities. The market doesn't adjust to them. Value is determined by what a qualified buyer is both willing and able to pay in this exact moment in time. And able is the keyword. With insurance premiums climbing, association fees increasing, and property taxes recalculating at higher assessments, buyers are scrutinizing the total monthly number more than ever before. If that payment crosses their comfort line, they're out. Silently. Instantly. Now, none of this means your home is bad. It doesn't mean it won't sell. It means the strategy must evolve. In 2026, the winning strategy is precision. Not optimism, not nostalgia, precision. It means analyzing the most recent closed sales, not the aspirational active listings. It means studying properties that failed to sell just as closely as the ones that did. It means understanding absorption rates, inventory levels, and buyer demand in your specific micro-neighborhood, not just statewide averages. Because here's the truth. There are homes selling every single day in Florida. Offers are being written, contracts are being signed, closings are happening, but they're happening on properties that are positioned correctly from the start. The silence you're experiencing is not random. It's not personal. It's not sabotage. It's feedback. And the sooner you stop fighting that feedback and start responding to it strategically, the sooner you regain control. The market isn't broken. Buyers aren't gone. But the fantasy pricing era absolutely is. In this environment, realism wins. Strategy wins. Speed wins. And the sellers who understand that are the ones who see that pending sign go up, while everyone else keeps refreshing their listing, wondering why the phone isn't ringing. And this is where so many sellers get blindsided. You're thinking in terms of equity. Buyers are thinking in terms of endurance. They're asking themselves one core question. Can I comfortably live with this payment for the next 5, 10, 15 years? Because in 2026, buying in Florida isn't just about qualifying for the loan. It's about surviving the total cost of ownership. Insurance premiums aren't just high, they're unpredictable. Buyers know carriers can pull out. They know policies can be non-renewed. They know deductibles for wind and hurricanes can be brutal. So, even if today's quote works, they're calculating worst-case scenarios in the back of their minds. And then comes maintenance. Roofs in Florida aren't cosmetic. They're insurance triggers. An older roof isn't just a future repair. It can mean higher premiums or coverage limitations. Aging plumbing, potential underwriting issue. Older electrical panels, red flag. Buyers are no longer glossing over these things. They're scrutinizing them because one small issue can cascade into thousands of dollars. All of this makes them conservative. So when they look at your price, they aren't just asking, is this fair? They're asking, does this give me margin? Margin for insurance spikes, margin for HOA increases, margin for property tax reassessments, margin for repairs. If your price leaves them no breathing room, they don't negotiate for a small discount. They eliminate the property entirely. And this is why homes that are priced just a little high feel completely invisible in today's market. It's not because buyers don't like them. It's because financially they can't justify squeezing their budget that tight when uncertainty is everywhere. Now let's tie this back to the county differences. In Miami-Dade, especially in the condo-heavy segments, those rising HOA fees and reserve requirements are magnified. A building that suddenly increases dues by $400 or $600 a month completely reshapes affordability. Buyers run the math and realize that a condo priced $30,000 less in another building with lower dues is actually cheaper long-term, even if it's smaller. In Broward, where price sensitivity is already sharper and inventory is more balanced, those ownership costs create even more downward pressure. If buyers feel stretched, they push harder. They negotiate credits. They demand repairs. They walk away over inspection findings that might have been ignored 2 years ago. And in Palm Beach, while resilience has offered sellers some stability, even their buyers are not blind to carrying costs. They may have slightly more purchasing power, but they're still disciplined. They still compare. They still calculate long-term exposure. The mistake sellers make is thinking appreciation protects them. Appreciation is backward-looking, affordability is forward-looking, buyers live in the forward, and here's the uncomfortable conclusion. When total ownership costs rise dramatically, the only flexible variable left in the equation is the purchase price. Insurance isn't negotiable. Taxes aren't negotiable. HOA fees aren't negotiable. Your price is. That's why the burden of adjustment is falling squarely on sellers in 2026. Not because homes aren't desirable, not because Florida isn't attractive, but because math always wins. And when buyers are staring at a monthly payment that feels like a financial chokehold, they don't fall in love. They don't stretch. They don't gamble. They move on to the house that makes the numbers feel safe. So if your property is sitting in Miami-Dade, Broward, or Palm Beach, the question isn't whether the market is good or bad. It's whether your pricing strategy accounts for the total cost reality buyers are facing in your specific micro-market. Because in this environment, the sellers who win aren't the ones with the highest expectations. They're the ones who understand the full equation and price accordingly. If you are watching this and your home is on the market right now and not getting the offers you expected, the first step is to get an honest, data-driven look at where you truly stand in today's market. Generic online estimates aren't the answer. National news reports aren't the answer. What your neighbor said they got for their house a year ago is certainly not the answer. The only thing that matters is hyper-local, up-to-the-minute data about your direct competition and the most recent sales. We can give you a free, no-obligation analysis that compares your property to what has sold in the last 30 days. What is for sale right now, and the specific trends in your neighborhood. This isn't a sales pitch, it's a strategy session. Let's find out what the market is really telling you. Don't let your home become just another stale listing. Because here's the truth, hope is not a pricing strategy. Waiting is not a strategy. And small emotional price drops every few weeks are not a strategy. Clarity is. When we sit down and look at the real numbers, a few powerful things happen. You stop guessing. You stop reacting emotionally to showings that go nowhere. You stop wondering if it's the photos, the staging, the open houses. We isolate the real variable. We look at absorption rates. We analyze price per square foot bands that are actually moving. We study which homes went pending fast and why, versus which ones lingered at. Sometimes the adjustment needed is smaller than you think. Sometimes it's bigger than you want, but either way, you regain control. And control is everything when your plans are tied to this sale. Maybe you're trying to relocate, maybe you're trying to buy your next property, maybe you're downsizing, upsizing, or freeing up equity. Every extra month on the market costs you money. Mortgage payments, insurance, utilities, opportunity cost. The right strategic adjustment now can prevent a much larger loss later. This conversation is not about dropping the price. It's about positioning. It's about understanding where your home sits within the current competitive landscape and deciding whether you want to lead the market or chase it, because the market always wins in the end. The only question is whether you work with it or fight it. Click the link in the description below to get your updated, comprehensive home valuation. Let's look at the real data. Let's build a smart, intentional plan. And let's turn silence into showings, showings into offers, and offers into a closing. Your next chapter is waiting, but it starts with facing the numbers. The hard truth of the 2026 South Florida housing market is that the wild seller-take-all frenzy is a memory. The market isn't collapsing. It's not 2008, but it is normalizing, which, in the long run, is actually a healthier, more sustainable place to be. But getting there demands a massive mindset shift from sellers. Power has shifted to the buyers. Today's buyers are armed with more choices, burdened by high costs, and absolutely laser-focused on finding true value. If your home isn't selling, the reason is almost certainly not your paint colors or your light fixtures. It's because your price is scaring away qualified buyers before they even consider a visit. The strategy of waiting it out or hoping for a magical return to 2021 is a failing strategy. It will only lead to more time, more frustration, and more money lost. Success in this market means being proactive, strategic, and brutally honest about your price from day one. It means understanding the specific data for your county, your city, and your property type. It means acknowledging the total cost of ownership that every single buyer is calculating. By pricing your home for the market you're in, not the one you wish you were in, you aren't leaving money on the table. You're making sure you get to the closing table at all. Because here's what most sellers don't realize. The longer you resist the market, the more negotiating power you quietly hand over to buyers. Time weakens leverage. When your home is fresh, you control the narrative. When it's been sitting for 90 or 120 days, buyers control it. They assume motivation, they assume flexibility, they assume there's room to push, and they will. The goal is not to get the highest number possible. The goal is to create momentum. Momentum creates urgency. Urgency creates competition. Competition creates stronger offers. And that only happens when your home is positioned as a compelling opportunity, not an overpriced question mark. This is the mindset shift. You're not trying to squeeze every last dollar out of a shrinking pool of buyers. You're trying to attract the strongest buyers in today's pool before they commit somewhere else. There are still serious buyers in South Florida. Families relocating, retirees downsizing, investors watching for value, move-up buyers adjusting to new life stages. But every one of them is disciplined. Every one of them is comparing. Every one of them is calculating risk. They are not emotional bidders anymore. They are strategic consumers, and strategic consumers reward clarity. When a home is priced correctly in this market, it doesn't sit for months. It generates activity. It stands out in a sea of options because buyers recognize fairness immediately. Fair pricing doesn't signal weakness, it signals confidence. It says, this seller understands the market. This is a serious opportunity. That's the difference between chasing the market and leading it. At the end of the day, normalization isn't a disaster. It's just a reset. The chaos is gone, the easy money is gone, the blind bidding wars are gone. What's left is a more rational, data-driven environment. And in a rational market, strategy beats nostalgia every time. So if your home isn't selling, don't panic. But don't deny the message either. Step back, look at the numbers without emotion, adjust with intention, align with reality. Because homes are still selling every single day. The sellers who win in 2026 aren't the ones who wait. They're the ones who adapt.